I got back at my high school bully by dating his mom. So, this story starts back when I was in high school. You know how there's always that one dude who thinks he's the king of the world and takes every opportunity to remind you of that? Yeah, well, I had one of those guys in my class, and we'll call him Chad. Chad was your typical jock, always surrounded by his posse, and he'd constantly pick on me for whatever reason. Maybe it was my glasses or my nerdy love for video games, but whatever it was, this guy made my life hell. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years after graduation. I'm at the grocery store, just minding my own business, when suddenly I see Chad's mom. Now, Chad's mom, let's call her Karen, is super hot. I'd always thought she was hot, even back in high school, but I never had the guts to do anything about it. But, times change, people grow, and I'd built up some confidence over the years. So I thought, why shouldn't I? And struck up a conversation with her. Karen was super friendly and, honestly, seemed pretty excited to chat with me. It turned out she remembered me from high school, and we got to talking about what we'd been up to since then. She told me she was recently divorced and trying to get back into the dating scene. Well, that was my cue. I asked her out, and she said yes. Score, right. We started dating, and it was honestly pretty great. Karen was fun, intelligent, and did I mention she was a total babe? Yeah, well, she was. Anyway, as we started dating, I couldn't help but think about how much this would mess with Chad if he ever found out. So, one day, when we were hanging out at Karen's place, I suggested we take a selfie together and post it on Facebook. Just something casual, nothing too lovey-dovey, but enough to get people talking. And talk they did. It didn't take long for the news to spread like wildfire. People from high school started reaching out to me, asking if I was really dating Chad's mom. I played it cool, of course, just casually confirming the rumors. Now, the real kicker came when Chad found out. He was absolutely livid. He confronted me one day at a local bar where I was hanging out with Karen and some friends. He was all like, "What the hell do you think you're doing with my mom, man?" And I just smirked, put my arm around Karen, and said, "What can I say, Chad? Your mom's got great taste." Chad stormed off, furious, and I couldn't help but feel a little smug. I mean, I wasn't dating Karen just to get back at him. She was genuinely an awesome person. But the fact that it also served as some sweet, sweet karma for all those years of torment, that was the cherry on top. So, yeah, that's my story. I dated my high school bully's mom, and it was the ultimate form of revenge. But honestly, I don't regret a thing. Karen and I had a great time together, and it was pretty satisfying to see Chad get a taste of his own medicine. Plus, it's not like I was doing anything wrong. Karen was a single woman who was interested in me, and I was interested in her. Simple as that. In the end, I guess the moral of the story is that you never know where life will take you. Sometimes, the tables can turn in the most unexpected ways. And if you're lucky, you might even get the chance to date your high school bully's mom. Well, that was pretty funny. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments. Entitled Bully Won't Leave Me Alone. So I learned Jiu-Jitsu and kick his ass in front of the entire school. I'd always been the quiet kid in school. I didn't like confrontation, and I tried my best to avoid it whenever possible. But there was this one kid who just wouldn't leave me alone. His name was Brandon, and he was the quintessential high school bully. He had a group of friends who followed him around everywhere, and they all seemed to get a kick out of tormenting me. It started off small at first. Brandon would make fun of me in the hallway or shove me into a locker as he walked by. But it quickly escalated. Soon, he was tripping me in the cafeteria, stealing my lunch money, and spreading rumors about me to the entire school. It was humiliating. I felt like everyone was laughing at me behind my back. And no matter how much I tried to ignore it, it just kept getting worse. One day, things came to a head. I was sitting in the library, trying to study for a test, when Brandon and his cronies walked in. They started making fun of me, throwing books off the shelves, and just generally causing a ruckus. I tried to ignore them, but then Brandon started pushing me. He was bigger and stronger than me, and I knew I didn't stand a chance. But I refused to let him see me cry. That's when I noticed a flyer on the bulletin board for a local martial arts gym. It was for Jiu-Jitsu classes, and something about it caught my eye. I'd never been interested in martial arts before, but in that moment, I knew I had to do something. I needed to learn how to defend myself. So, I took a deep breath, ripped the flyer off the bulletin board, and made my way to the gym. When I got there, I was a little nervous. I didn't know anything about Jiu-Jitsu, and I was worried I would embarrass myself. But the instructor, a man named Master Tom, was welcoming and patient. He showed me the basics, and I quickly realized that Jiu-Jitsu was more than just a fighting style. It was a way of life. I started going to classes every day. I practiced my moves, watched videos online, and even started reading books about Jiu-Jitsu. I was determined to become a master. Meanwhile, Brandon was still bullying me. He seemed to take pleasure in seeing me squirm, and he made sure everyone knew how much he disliked me. But I didn't care. I knew I was getting stronger, both physically and mentally. I started to stand up for myself in small ways, like refusing to give Brandon my lunch money, or telling him to leave me alone when he tried to pick a fight. Eventually, the day came when Brandon decided he'd had enough of my defiance. He walked up to me in the middle of the school courtyard, surrounded by a crowd of onlookers. "Hey, loser," he sneered. "Thought you could just hide behind your little karate classes." Well, let's see what you've got. I took a deep breath and got into a defensive stance. Brandon charged at me, throwing a punch, but I was ready for him. I sidestepped his attack and grabbed a single leg and took him down to the ground where I landed in top position. The crowd gasped in amazement. I'd never seen so many people staring at me before, but I didn't let it distract me. I continued to grapple with Brandon, using the moves I'd learned in class. It was a long and grueling fight. Brandon was strong and stubborn, and he refused to give up. Despite his resistance, I persisted. I was focused and determined, and I knew I had to finish this fight once and for all. After several minutes of grappling, I saw an opening. Brandon had left his neck exposed, and I took the opportunity to wrap my arm around it and apply a chokehold. He struggled for a few seconds, but then tapped out, signaling his surrender. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. I had done it. I had defeated the school bully in front of everyone. After that day, Brandon never bothered me again. In fact, he even came up to me and apologized for the way he had treated me in the past. We didn't become best friends or anything, but we were civil to each other, and that was enough for me. As for me, I continued to train in Jiu-Jitsu. It had become more than just a way to defend myself. It was a passion, a way of life. I went on to compete in local tournaments, and even won a few medals along the way. Looking back, I realized that getting bullied was a blessing in disguise. It led me to discover a whole new world, one that I may never have found otherwise. And it taught me a valuable lesson that no matter how small or powerless you may feel, you always have the ability to fight back. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. What do you think? When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here for more Tangled threads.